What if I told you that the difference between who you are and who you could be comes down to one simple thing: discipline? Not talent, not luck, not connections, just discipline. Welcome to this summary of Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday, the second book in his Stoic Virtues series. Over the next 70 minutes, we're going to explore why self-control isn't just some boring virtue your parents lectured you about. It's actually the secret weapon of history's greatest achievers, artists, athletes, and leaders. So settle in, and let's discover how mastering yourself can change everything. Ryan Holiday opens this book with a simple truth. Discipline starts with the body, not with your mind, not with your goals, but with your physical self. Think about it. When you can't get out of bed in the morning, when you overeat, when you skip the workout, when you stay up scrolling through your phone until 2 in the morning, those aren't just small failures. They're the foundation crumbling beneath everything else you want to accomplish. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They knew that if you can't control your body, you can't control anything else in your life. Holiday tells us about Lou Gehrig, the legendary baseball player known as the Iron Horse. Gehrig played 2,130 consecutive games, a record that stood for over 50 years. But here's what's remarkable. Gehrig wasn't the most talented player of his era. He played alongside Babe Ruth, one of the greatest natural talents baseball has ever seen. But while Ruth indulged in every excess imaginable, food, alcohol, women, late nights, Gehrig was disciplined. He trained consistently, ate properly, and showed up every single day. Ruth flamed out relatively early. Gehrig became a legend. The lesson? Talent without discipline is wasted. Discipline without extraordinary talent can still create something extraordinary. Your body is the only one you're going to get. Holiday reminds us that the Stoics called the body a temple, not because it should be worshipped, but because it should be maintained. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote about the importance of physical discipline even while running an empire. He understood that if his body failed, everything else would fail too. This doesn't mean you need to become a gym obsessive or count every calorie. It means respecting your body enough to give it what it needs: movement, rest, nourishment, and care. When you ignore your body's needs, you're not being free. You're being enslaved by your appetites. Real freedom comes from self-control. Here's where Holiday gets really interesting. He talks about how our modern world is designed to make us indulge. Every advertisement, every app, every business model is built around triggering our desires and removing friction from satisfying them. Want food? It arrives in 30 minutes. Want entertainment? Infinite streaming. Want validation? Social media gives you little dopamine hits all day. But here's the trap. The easier it becomes to satisfy your desires, the weaker you become. Your discipline muscle atrophies. And eventually you find yourself unable to do hard things because you've lost the ability to resist easy things. Holiday shares the example of Elvis Presley. Phenomenal talent, incredible success, but ultimately destroyed by indulgence. He had every desire satisfied immediately, and it killed him at 42. So how do you build physical discipline? Holiday offers practical wisdom. Start small. Don't try to transform your entire life overnight. Pick one thing. Maybe it's making your bed every morning. Maybe it's doing 10 push-ups before your shower. Maybe it's drinking a glass of water before coffee. Create systems, not goals. Don't say, I want to lose 20 pounds. Say, I'm the kind of person who exercises every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Goals are about the destination. Systems are about the journey. Remove temptation. This is huge. The Stoics knew you shouldn't rely on willpower alone. If you don't want to eat junk food, don't keep it in your house. If you want to stop scrolling at night, Charge your phone in another room. Make the right choice the easy choice. Track your streak. There's power in not breaking the chain. Jerry Seinfeld used this method to write jokes every day. Mark an X on a calendar for every day you do the thing. Watch the chain grow. Don't break it. Here's what makes physical discipline so powerful. It compounds. Every day you make the disciplined choice, it gets slightly easier. Every day you make the undisciplined choice, it gets slightly harder to turn things around. Think of it like a savings account. Each disciplined action is a small deposit. Over months and years, those deposits add up to something significant. But every undisciplined action is a withdrawal, and eventually you go bankrupt. Holiday reminds us of Queen Elizabeth II, who maintained remarkable physical discipline into her 90s. She didn't do anything extreme, just consistent daily walks, moderate eating, and a regular schedule. That consistency gave her the energy and clarity to serve for 70 years. If discipline of the body is about controlling your physical appetites, discipline of the mind is about controlling your thoughts, emotions, and attention. This is harder, much harder. Your body might crave a donut, but your mind is constantly generating fears, anxieties, desires, resentments, and distractions. It's like a monkey swinging from branch to branch, never settling, always restless. The Stoics called this the inner citadel, the fortress of your mind that must be defended against chaos. Holiday tells us about Angela Merkel, who served as Chancellor of Germany for 16 years. In a world of theatrical, emotional politicians, Merkel was remarkably different. She was calm, analytical, disciplined in her thinking. When crisis hit, and it hit often during her tenure, from financial collapse to refugee crises, she didn't panic, she didn't lash out. She thought clearly, gathered information, and made decisions. This wasn't natural talent. It was disciplined thinking, cultivated over decades. She trained herself not to react emotionally, but to respond rationally. In our modern world, attention might be the most valuable resource you have, and it's under constant attack. Every notification, every email, every headline is designed to hijack your focus. Studies show that after an interruption, it takes an average of 23 minutes to return to deep focus on a task. Think about how many times you're interrupted in a day. Holiday argues that in this environment, the ability to focus is a superpower. When everyone else is distracted, the person who can concentrate deeply wins. He shares the story of Kobe Bryant, the basketball legend who was famous for his mental discipline. While other players socialized or partied, Kobe studied film, visualized plays, and maintained laser focus on improvement. His talent was matched by many. His discipline was matched by almost no one. Here's a hard truth. Your emotions are not facts, they're reactions, often triggered by old patterns and past experiences. They can be useful signals, but they shouldn't be in the driver's seat. The Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Basically, they imagined worst-case scenarios in advance, so they wouldn't be shocked or overwhelmed when difficulties arrived. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. It's mental discipline. Holiday talks about James Stockdale, a Navy pilot who was shot down over Vietnam and spent 7 years as a prisoner of war. Stockdale credited his survival to Stoic philosophy. He had disciplined his mind to accept hardship without breaking, while others clung to optimistic fantasies that led to crushing disappointment. Stockdale maintained realistic expectations and inner strength. One of the most powerful tools for mental discipline is journaling. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world during his time, kept a journal. He wasn't writing for publication. These were private notes to himself, reminders about how to think and behave. Holiday journals every day, and he recommends it as a practice for everyone. Here's why it works. Journaling creates distance. When you write down your anxious thoughts, you separate them from them. You see them on the page instead of swirling in your head. They become smaller, more manageable. Journaling reveals patterns. When you write regularly, you start to notice that the same worries come up repeatedly. Often, they never actually manifest. This teaches you not to trust every anxious thought. Journaling clarifies priorities. When you articulate what matters to you in writing, it becomes harder to ignore. Your values become explicit rather than implicit. You don't need to write essays. Even 3 bullet points a day can change your life. What am I grateful for? What's challenging me? What's one thing I can do better today? Here's something most people don't realize. Every yes is a no to something else. When you say yes,
Holiday explores how discipline manifests in professional life. He talks about the disciplined writer who shows up at the keyboard every day even when inspiration is absent. About the disciplined entrepreneur who builds slowly and sustainably rather than chasing get-rich-quick schemes. About the disciplined employee who does excellent work regardless of whether anyone notices. The story of Florence Nightingale stands out here. She wasn't just a nurse who cared for wounded soldiers, though she did that with incredible dedication. She was also a rigorous statistician who used data to reform healthcare systems. She worked tirelessly, methodically, and with incredible discipline to create lasting change. Most people think success comes from one big break. The disciplined know it comes from 1,000 small efforts consistently applied over time. This is an area where discipline is often overlooked, but it's crucial. How easy is it to snap at your spouse when you're stressed, to ignore your friends because you're busy, to prioritize work over family? Holiday reminds us that relationships require discipline. The discipline to listen when you'd rather talk, to really hear what someone is saying instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. The discipline to be present when you'd rather be distracted, to put down your phone and give someone your full attention. The discipline to be kind when you'd rather be right, to choose harmony over victory in arguments that don't really matter. The discipline to show up consistently, not just when it's convenient, to be there for people in their ordinary moments, not just their crises. Holiday shares that the Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself to be patient with difficult people, to assume good intentions, to focus on what he could control, his own responses, rather than trying to control others. Financial discipline is where many people's lives fall apart. We live in a culture that encourages spending, that equates possessions with status, that whispers, "You deserve it," whenever we want something. Holiday talks about how debt is a form of slavery. When you owe money, you're not free. Your choices are constrained. You have to take jobs you hate. You can't take risks. You're always stressed about payments. The disciplined person lives below their means, saves consistently, and doesn't confuse wants with needs. They understand that financial independence, having enough saved that you're not dependent on any single income source, is the ultimate form of freedom. He shares the example of Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. Even when he was one of the richest people in America, Walton drove an old pickup truck and got his hair cut at the local barber shop for a few dollars. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. His identity wasn't tied to what he owned. This might be where discipline matters most. Anyone can be disciplined when life is going well. The real test comes when things fall apart. Holiday tells the story of Frederick Douglass, born into slavery, but who became one of the most influential abolitionists and writers of the 19th century. Douglass maintained incredible discipline in the most brutal circumstances. He taught himself to read when it was forbidden. He maintained his dignity when everything was designed to break it. He persevered when every rational calculation said he should give up. Adversity reveals character, and disciplined character can withstand almost anything. When you face setbacks, and you will, discipline determines your response. The undisciplined person collapses into self-pity or lashes out in anger. The disciplined person stays calm, assesses the situation, and takes the next right action. Here's something Holiday emphasizes throughout the book. Discipline isn't primarily about the big moments. It's about the small ones. It's making your bed even though no one will see it. It's putting your shopping cart back even though you could just leave it. It's being polite to the waiter even though you're in a bad mood. It's doing one more rep when you're tired. It's keeping your word about small things. Why? Because the small things prepare you for the big things. You don't suddenly become disciplined in a crisis if you haven't practiced discipline in daily life. Holiday quotes the Navy SEALs, "Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training." Your daily habits are your training. Train well. Holiday is realistic about the challenges we face. We don't live in ancient Rome where maintaining discipline was difficult, but the environment wasn't actively working against you. Today, everything is engineered to undermine your discipline. Social media platforms hire psychologists to make their apps addictive. Fast food companies optimize for flavor combinations that override satiety signals. Retailers use sophisticated tactics to trigger impulse purchases. You're not weak for struggling with discipline. You're human, fighting against systems designed by very smart people to exploit your psychology. But that doesn't mean you're helpless. It means you need to be strategic. Our minds are incredibly good at rationalization. That's the voice that says, "You've had a hard day, you deserve this. Everyone else is doing it. Just this once won't matter. You'll start tomorrow. Life is short, why deprive yourself?" Holiday warns us to recognize these rationalizations for what they are, the undisciplined part of ourselves trying to seize control. The disciplined response is to see through these arguments. Yes, life is short. That's exactly why you shouldn't waste it on things that don't matter. Yes, everyone else is doing it, but you're not everyone else. You're trying to be better. We like to think peer pressure is something teenagers deal with, but Holiday points out it never stops. It just gets more sophisticated. In your 20s, it's pressure to party and stay out late. In your 30s, it's pressure to keep up with everyone's lifestyle on social media. In your 40s, it's pressure to buy the impressive house and car. At every age, there's pressure to conform to what everyone else is doing. The disciplined person learns to stand apart. They're willing to be different, to disappoint people, to not fit in perfectly. They've defined their own standards instead of adopting everyone else's. This is huge. Holiday talks about how we're constantly pulled toward urgent matters, emails that need responses, meetings that need attending, fires that need putting out, while the important things get neglected. Going to the gym isn't urgent, but it's important. Reading that book isn't urgent, but it's important. Having deep conversations with your kids isn't urgent, but it's important. The disciplined person protects time for important things even when urgent things are screaming for attention. They understand that if you only respond to urgency, you'll never do anything meaningful. Here's the paradox that Holiday explores beautifully. Discipline doesn't restrict your freedom, it creates it. When you're disciplined with your money, you're free from financial stress. When you're disciplined with your health, you're free to enjoy an active life. When you're disciplined with your time, you're free to pursue what matters. The undisciplined person thinks they're free because they can do whatever they want in the moment, but they're actually enslaved to their appetites, to their debts, to their impulses. Real freedom comes from self-control. The Stoics understood this deeply. They saw that the tyrant who could do anything was less free than the wise person who had mastered themselves. When you live with discipline, you sleep well at night. You're not racked with regret about what you ate, what you said, what you failed to do. You're not anxious about debts you can't pay or lies you have to maintain. Holiday talks about the deep peace that comes from knowing you do best, kept your word, and acted with integrity. No external achievement can give you this. Only discipline can. Disciplined people can weather storms that break others. Why? Because they've built strength through consistent practice. They have reserves, financial reserves because they saved, physical reserves because they trained, mental reserves because they practiced controlling their thoughts, spiritual reserves because they clarified their values. When crisis comes, they don't panic. They draw on these reserves and persist. This is the ultimate reward of discipline. Without it, you remain trapped in who you are. With it, you can become who you're capable of being. Holiday points out that every admirable quality, courage, wisdom, justice, creativity, requires discipline as its foundation. You can't be courageous without the discipline to act despite fear. You can't be wise without the discipline to reflect and learn. You can't be just without the discipline to do the right thing even when it costs you. Discipline is the bridge between your current self and your best self. Holiday's advice is refreshingly practical. Don't try to transform everything at once. You'll fail and then feel worse about yourself. Pick one area. Maybe it's your morning routine. Maybe it's your spending. Maybe it's how you talk to yourself. Pick one thing and work on it until it becomes automatic. Then add the next thing. Discipline builds on itself. Each small victory makes the next one more achievable. The Stoics had something modern people often lack, a clear philosophy of life. They knew what mattered to them and what didn't. This made decisions easier because they weren't starting from scratch every time. Holiday ends the book with a powerful reminder. Discipline is destiny, because what you do repeatedly shapes who you become. Every day, you're either building the person you want to be or eroding that person. Every choice matters, not because any single choice will make or break you, but because your choices accumulate into a life. The undisciplined person looks back with regret. I could have been. If only I had. I meant to. The disciplined person looks back with satisfaction. I did my best. I stayed true to myself. I became who I wanted to be. Which person do you want to be? The good news, the amazing news, is that this is entirely up to you. Your past doesn't determine your future. Your circumstances don't dictate your character. Your feelings don't have to control your actions. You can start right now, today, this moment. Make your bed. Take a walk. Write 3 sentences in a journal. Do 1 push-up. Put your phone in another room. Say no to something that doesn't serve you. Say yes to something that does. These seem like small things. They are small things, but small things, done consistently, become extraordinary things. The Stoics have a phrase, amor fati, love of fate. It means accepting whatever happens and making the most of it. But Holiday adds a twist. While you can't control what happens to you, you absolutely can control who you become in response. Your discipline shapes your destiny. So here's your invitation. Start today. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not when conditions are perfect, today. Pick one thing. Do it. Then do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Build the discipline chain, link by link. Build the life you want, day by day. Build the person you're capable of being, choice by choice. Because discipline isn't just destiny. Discipline is freedom. Discipline is peace. Discipline is power. Discipline is respect for yourself and from others. Discipline is the path to becoming who you were meant to be, and that journey starts now.